Tonight on Y News. The Philippine Air Force releases the names of the soldiers killed in the fatal helicopter crash in Tanay, Rizal. A whistleblower claims the chopper crashed in Rizal are among aircrafts procured under an anomalous contract. Malacañang expresses disappointment over UN Special Rapporteur Agnes Calamar's visit to the Philippines without prior coordination.
The Bureau of Fisheries and Aquatic Resources and the Department of Agriculture launched an expedition in the Benham Rice. The Light Rail Transit Authority, or LRTA, promises more improved train services after the completion of repairs in facilities by 2019. And lifetime scholarship grants await students recommended by 4 bar top-notchers from the University of San Carlos.
Y News begins now.
From the UNTV News and Rescue Command Center, this is Y News with Angelo Castro III and Darlene Basingan.
Good evening. The Philippine Air Force releases the names of the soldiers who died in a military chopper crash in Tanay, Rizal. Residents living near the crash site said the incident was horrifying and heartbreaking. Nel Maribuhok will tell us why.
The Philippine Air Force has released the name of the 4 soldiers on board a military chopper that crashed yesterday in the Sitio Hilltop, Barangay Sampaloc, Tanay, Rizal. The casualties in the incident were 30 years old and Batangas resident Captain Christian Paul Litan, the pilot in command, 38-year-old Staff Sergeant Byron Tolosa from Pasay City, 30-year-old Airman First Class Joseph De Leon of Lingayen, Pangasinan, 27-year-old First Lieutenant Cesar Rima. The co-pilot survived in the crash. A team from the scene of the crime operatives arrived in the crash site to conduct an investigation. Meanwhile, residents narrated their experience during the incident and how they attempted to rescue those on board the chopper. Sitio Hilltop resident Mila recounted how she ran into her house while carrying her 6-month-old grandchild when the chopper crashed near their house.
Parang nawala ko. Tapos ang ginawa namin, sabi ng anak kong isa, nandito na yung isa kong babaeng anak. Andiyan kami sa terrace eh. Kinuha na yung isa kong apo. Kargat, tumakbo na kami dyan, pababa doon. Tumakbo na kami doon. Kanya-kanya na kaming takbuhan ng mga apo ko.
Arnel, who witnessed the crash, says he saw smoke coming out of the helicopter.
Aba, nung malapit na nga po yung nakita ko yung may bandang huli po niyan. Umuusok-usok. Tapos sabi ko, ang kakoy talagang pabulusok na rito sa atin. Hindi pa nga ako na tumutunog na yung bub. Diretso na po pagbagsak ko, narinig ko na yung boom. Sabay talong ko na po.
Buboy meanwhile was the one who rescued the 2 Air Force personnel positioned in front of the chopper. He says he just took the courage to save the 2 although he was aware of the danger.
Malapit na nung chopper na bumagsak, may nakita kong taong gumalaw. Kaya po dahil sa putukan, medyo alangan pa ako nung una. Pero nung may napansin ako na tao na ngailangan ng tulong, talagang ginapang ko na po para mahugot ko lang sa doon sa pinagkukuhan niya.
Buboy sustained injuries in his leg and fracture in his fingers after rescuing the victims. Until now, the debris of the military chopper has yet to be removed. The residents also call on the military to clear the site at the soonest possible time. Nel Maribuhok, UNTV News and Rescue, Tanay, Rizal.
An amateur video surfaced showing a military chopper engulfed with flames after it crashed near a residential area in Tanay, Rizal. The owner of the video refused to be identified. Sound of blasting bullets can be heard on the background, which are believed to be coming from inside the chopper. Screams can also be heard coming from residents in panic after the crash. 4 persons are seen carrying what seems to be a body of a victim away from the crash site. Through the end of the video, a medical unit of the Philippine Army arrived. The remains of the soldiers killed in yesterday's fatal crash of a Philippine Air Force chopper in Tanay, Rizal have been brought home to their families. The bodies were first transferred from Camp Capinpin to Villamor Air Base in Pasay City earlier today. The Philippine Air Force then airlifted each of the bodies to their respective hometowns. The Air Force assures that the families of the victims will receive appropriate assistance from the government.
Mga labi ng mga nasuwi nating isang piloto at sa dalawang crew natin, yung si Captain Litan, dadalhin siya sa Batangas. In-air transport na siya from here going to Lipad. The other one, si A1C De Leon, will be transported going to Pangasinan. Kasi yun ang request ng pamilya nila at gusto lang natin kita sa lahat na full support ang Philippine Air Force, ang leadership ng Philippine Air Force sa lahat ng needs and requirements ng family ng mga nasawi nating mga kasamahan.
A whistleblower has revealed that the Air Force chopper that crashed in Tanay, Rizal yesterday was among those allegedly purchased by the Department of National Defense and Philippine Air Force through a rigged bidding in 2014. Joyce Balancho will tell us why.
More than a year after a refurbished UH-1D chopper of the Philippine Air Force crashed in Sarangani Province in November of 2005, another chopper malfunctioned and crashed yesterday at Tanay, Rizal, killing 3 military men and injuring 1. Former whistleblower Rodora Alvarez from Rice Aircraft Services Incorporated says these 2 aircrafts were part of the allegedly anomalous 1.2 billion procurement contract between the Armed Forces of the Philippines, the Department of National Defense, Rice Aircraft Services Incorporated, and Eagle Copters Limited.
You can notice the similarity. Pareho silang papalanding, pareho silang nasunog. You will wonder why. Ako, nakita ko na yun eh. Sabi ko kasi, yung rewiring ng helicopter na yan, wala kaming pinalitan.
Alvarez was the one who revealed to the media and the Senate inquiry about the anomaly on the contract in 2015. 70 out of 21 UH-1D choppers were delivered to the Air Force, but after the issue of rigged bidding came out, procurement contract with Rice Aircraft Service was ordered terminated. Alvarez reveals despite termination of contract, the DND and PAF allegedly continued the purchasing of the refurbished choppers.
The contract was terminated April or May 2015. So you will notice no April, May, and then May nag-start ng Senate inquiry. Comes September, October, bakit sila nag-i-inspect for acceptance? While the Senate inquiry is ongoing and the contract was already terminated.
Meanwhile, the Philippine Air Force confirms that they have 12 UH-1D but declined to give details as to its purchase.
I'm sure it will be for the benefit or for the advantage of the Philippine Air Force and of course the Armed Forces of the Philippines. Yung magiging desisyon kung bakit talaga meron pa rin sa atin or bakit natin kinuha yung UH-1D.
Colonel Francisco guarantees that while these are not new aircrafts, they always make sure that these are safe to use.
During the time of the first incident, of course, tinignan natin, inspect na natin, and we have proven na talaga namang airworthy. And it's just a matter of that was an accident. And minsan, maski ayaw natin, talagang dumadating ang aksidente.
The Air Force ordered an investigation on the incident and they will not be using UH-1D until the cause of incident is determined. Meanwhile, the Senate might resume its investigation on the issue.
We look into it because meron na akong dyan, meron na simulan na natin yan before. So, what I want to check is nadagdagan ba yun?
The Philippine Air Force assures its readiness to take part in any investigation that will be conducted on the incident. Joyce Balancho, UNTV News and Rescue, Pasay City.
UN Special Rapporteur Agnes Callamard and policy experts criticized the so-called war on drugs of the Duterte administration. Roderick Mendoza will tell us why.
Speaking before a drug policy forum, UN Special Rapporteur Agnes Callamard says the General Assembly of Nations last year recognized that the so-called war on drugs doesn't work. Instead, such policies only add and escalate problems like extrajudicial killings and the breakdown of the rule of law.
Badly thought out, ill-conceived drug policies foster a regime of impunity, infecting the whole justice sector. and reaching into societies, invigorating the rule of violence rather than the rule of law, eroding public trust in public institutions, breeding fear and leading people to despair. These have been well documented throughout the world.
Calamard says that for 8 months, she has been watching the situation in the Philippines. She heard debates between politicians, explanations of government officials, and even watched footage of police and military men. She is convinced that there are better options than the war on drugs.
There are other ways, better ways, evidence-based, scientific ways of combating drug abuse and trafficking, ways that do not make matters worse.
Experts on drug policy also criticize Duterte's campaign against illegal drugs. They say it is a war against certain people that is portrayed as something else.
There's no such thing as a war on drugs. All you need to do is to look at who's being arrested, who's being killed, the poor people in your society. The Philippines is seen as a transshipment point. That has not been what has been necessarily or overtly targeted in the current war on drugs.
A group of human rights lawyers in the country is disturbed with how the government's drug policy is going.
Every day that people are encouraged to take the law into their own hands, lives are lost, but more even deeper than that, our legal system loses all its meaning.
Meanwhile, Calamard reacts on Malacañang's statement regarding her unadvised arrival to the country.
They are entitled to monitor me, absolutely. They have, I am here at the invitation of the university and of the task force, and I will participate to the discussion in that role, and that's the only contribution and work that I will be doing over the next 2 days.
Roderick Mendoza, UNTV News and Rescue, Quezon City.
Malacañang expresses disappointment over United Nations Special Rapporteur Agnes Calamard's visit to the Philippines without prior coordination. Jun Soriao will tell us why.
Presidential spokesperson Undersecretary Ernesto Abella said United Nations Special Rapporteur Agnes Calamard's unannounced arrival is a signal that he is not interested in getting an objective perspective on the anti-drug war of the Duterte administration. On September 26, 2016, Malacañang, through the office of the Executive Secretary Salvador Medialdea, sent a formal invitation for the UN rapporteur. Malacañang asked Calamard to investigate also the deaths of police who conducted legitimate operations against drug suspects. The government also insisted on the conditions of President Duterte to let him ask questions to Calamard on why the Philippines is the focus of the investigation of UN while there are other countries in which killings of innocent and defenseless is rampant. Abella also said Calamard's refusal to respond to the Philippines' invitation implies her lack of interest to conduct a comprehensive investigation on drug-related killings in the country. He also notes that Calamard's visit is very much a coincidence with the departure of the Philippines senior-level delegation traveled to Geneva, Switzerland to attend the third cycle of the Universal Peer Review of the Philippines and issue of human rights. Meanwhile, Malacañang asked the representatives of the country to the United Nations to take up the said action to Calamard with their United Nations counterparts, which Abella said circumvents the UN protocols for such visits. For her part, Calamard maintains her stay in the country is for academic purposes only.
They are entitled to monitor me, absolutely. They have, I am here at the invitation of the university and of the task force, and I will participate to the discussion in that role, and that's the only contribution and work that I will be doing over the next 2 days.
Jun Soriao, UNTV News and Rescue, Philippines.
The number of Filipinos who are in favor of the reimposition of death penalty has declined. Based on the latest Pulse Asia survey among 1,200 respondents, 67% agree to the reimposition of capital punishment to those guilty of heinous crimes related to illegal drugs use. The figure is lower than the 81% recorded in July 2016. 25% opposed the bill, while 8% remain undecided. Meanwhile, 55% of the respondents believe that it is still best to retain the minimum age of criminal liability to 15 years old.
The Light Rail Transit Authority, or LRTA, targets to finish the repair of damaged facilities of LRT Line 2 in 2019. LRTA says this would further improve the train system services to its thousands of daily passengers. Joan Nano will tell us why.
Itong mga escalators, minsan hindi gumagana. At saka yung elevators pala. Ayun CR.
Tsaka?
At saka yung mga escalator. Elevator. Siyempre, pag may edad ka na, hirap ka nang maglakad na.
Kasi nga, nakakainis nga. Sobrang init, tapos mami meron palang blower lang.
These are just some of the usual complaints of passengers of LRT Line 2, especially the elderly. The Light Rail Transit Authority, or LRTA's data reveals that there are only 2 elevators working in all LRT2 stations. The others are in need of repair. 22 escalators are working and only 36 are functional. Comfort rooms in all terminals are also in need of repair, as well as the air conditioning system and the old parts of the trains.
I-improve po natin ang air conditioning. Katulad po ngayon, medyo napapansin ninyo, natatalo yung lamig ng loob ng train ng mga ilaw natin. Yan, isa po yan. At pati po yung tinatawag na gangway, kung saan nagdudugtong yung mga coaches, ay papalitan din po yan. Dahil in the past, isa sa mga issues dito ay pag umuulan, ay tumutulo yung loob ng train.
Of the 18 train sets of LRT2, only 10 are operational, while the other 4 trains are being overhauled. In 2019, the government targets the turnover to the LRTA of the Eastern Extension Project of LRT2 from Santolan to Masinag, Rizal. The management of the LRTA is confident that the public can use as soon as possible the 4 LRT trains currently under repair. Joan Nano, UNTV News and Rescue, Quezon City.
The Light Rail Transit Authority, or LRTA, launches today a system called Passenger Assist Rail Display. The new system will allow passengers to determine the time of arrival and departure of trains in every LR2 station. The LRTA will install 40 monitors in each train of LRT2 that can display the cause of delay of every trip. So far, only one of the 10 trains of the LRT2 has been installed with the Passenger Assist Rail Display System, which will be fully operational in June. After the installation of all the monitors, the developer plans to create a mobile application that passengers can install in their cell phones.
It will include yung mga dissemination ng emergency situation. So all administrative announcements ng LRTA can be coursed through this part.
Next on Y News. The Bureau of Fisheries and Aquatic Resources and the Department of Agriculture launch Expedition the Benham Rise. And the Lifetime Scholarship Grants await students recommended by 4 bar top-notchers from the University of San Carlos. Y News will be right back. President Rodrigo Duterte visited the ARMM Police Regional Office this afternoon, where he was briefed on the current security situation in the region. The president promised the PRO of ARMM that he will provide their needs for them to be able to perform their jobs, noting that the region has been the hotbed of illegal drugs and criminality. He also promised the law enforcers that should they lose their lives in the performance of their duties, government would take care of their families. Meanwhile, the president also voiced out his concern with the ongoing talks with the Moro rebels. However, he insists that the police should still do their duty with or without the success of the peace talks.
I am talking to the MI pati MN, but apparently you'd notice nag-aagawan sila ng kampo ngayon. So I'm at a loss even. I was very optimistic before, but I'm a bit pessimistic now. Kasi Sinor is keeping his silence, but he talks to me in private. But yung misgivings niya dito sa ibang grupo, it used to be MN, tapos this sprouting up of MI, BI, lahat-lahat na, it seems to be a convoluted thing. Kaya pati ako, hindi naman kinabahan, but I'm a little bit worried that nothing will come out of this.
Health Secretary Pauline Jean Obial says she is now ready to face the Commission on Appointments in her upcoming confirmation hearing at the Senate. Aiko Miguel will tell us why.
Last year, DOH Secretary Pauline Jean Obial was able to prepare all the necessary documents she needed in her confirmation hearing at the Senate.
All my documents were submitted to the Commission on Appointments Secretariat, but I leave it up to them to make the schedule.
It can be recalled that ex-OFW Party List Representative Aniceto Jan Bertiz opposed her confirmation. This is because of Obial's alleged inaction on the complaints of overseas Filipino workers against a company that charges huge amount for the supposedly free medical testing of OFWs going to Kuwait. The Action for Good Governance has also opposed the confirmation of Obial because of her frequent travel out of the country.
I represent in the Department of Health our fight for corruption, our fight for good governance in the bureaucracy, and our fight for really looking at the health and well-being of our people, and no hidden agenda.
Obial was supposed to face the CA hearing on March 8, but the schedule was moved because of the issues the CA had to face over the appointments of then DENR Secretary Gina Lopez. Despite the hurdles, the Health Secretary assures that she can prove to the lawmakers that she can lead the Department of Health. Aiko Miguel, UNTV News and Rescue, Quezon City.
The National Grid Corporation, or NGCP, says it might be forced to go to the International Arbitration Court. Mon Hokson will tell us why.
Should the National Transmission Commission or Transco insist on the revocation of the National Grid Corporation or NGCP's franchise, the latter would have no other option but go to the International Court. The National Transmission Corporation or Transco, meanwhile, is determined to bring to President Rodrigo Duterte their complaint against NGCP. This is after the latter did not inform Transco about the business it ventured into. Transco claims this includes the NGCP's use of the fiber optics of some telecommunication companies. Transco insists the public should be benefiting from the revenues of the NGCP, which it says is based on its concession agreement. Just yesterday, Transco accused NGCP of disregarding its request to have a meeting. The NGCP meanwhile responded today to Transco's accusation and presented a document showing they held a meeting with the company. Transco also accuses NGCP of allowing telcos to use its facilities.
Hindi naman namin sinabing bawal. Ang sabi namin, magpaalam kayo. Dapat alam namin. Bakit? That is our mandate. That is for the protection of the Filipino consumer.
The NGCP admits the allegations but says it has no relation to the use of fiber optics since it's just a co-location agreement.
Makikita niyo ho na hindi lang ho kami pinapahintulutang mag-conduct ng related business including telecommunications. Hindi ho namin kailangang humingi ng prior written approval. Pero hindi ibig sabihin ho nun, hindi namin ipapaalam kung gusto ho nilang malaman.
The Transco also alleges that there are air-conditioned container vans inside NGCP's facility. Transco claims these are telco-owned which operate using fiber optics. This has been admitted by the NGCP but denies telcos are profiting from it. Transco also insists the NGCP should declare its revenues from its business contracts to help lower the transmission charge. The NGCP meanwhile showed a document saying they have been doing it for a long time now. Amid the exchange, NGCP still hopes to have a meaningful dialogue with Transco. Despite this, the NGCP is determined to bring the matter to the International Arbitration Court if the Transco will insist on the revocation of its franchise. Mon Hokson, UNTV News and Rescue, Quezon City.
Other provinces are likely to benefit from the more than 194 million peso fund allotted for the new prison jail in Zamboanga City. June Soria will tell us why.
The local government of Zamboanga City is still scouting around for a possible lot where the new city jail can be built on. The Zamboanga local government is worried that the Department of Budget and Management would give the 194.2 million peso fund to another province. This is because the period given by the national government to use the fund will expire next month.
Hiningi talaga namin sa DBM na kung maaari lang ma-extend ninyo ang deadline. Kasi the city is already naghanap ng paraan ang city natin na to provide us a lot.
The Budget Department approves the extension of the deadline until December 2017. If the fund is still unused, it will be given to another province or returned to the National Treasury. Zamboanga City Jail is one of the most congested prisons in the country with 2,443 inmates. The number is 3 times of the prison's total capacity, which is 800. Almost 70 high-risk inmates are detained in Zamboanga City Jail, including some Abu Sayyaf, MNLF and MILF members.
As we can see, our situation in jail is now over-congested na talaga. So with that, we look for other means to resolve the problem of congestion.
Jun Suriao, UNTV News and Rescue, Philippines.
19 alleged Abu Sayyaf Group or ASG members have surrendered to Joint Task Force Basilan. The surrenderers include 2 ASG sub-leaders, namely Nur Hassan Lahaman and Madsar Angkun. Other surrenderers are 4 members of the ASG subgroup Salapudin who are involved in the sea-jacking of MV Shuttle Tugboat 1 last March 23. The surrenderers gave up their 12 firearms. On April 27, 4 other members of the ASG surrendered to Joint Task Force Sulu. The Armed Forces of the Philippines says 40 ASG members are from Basilan, Sulu and Tawi-Tawi have surrendered since President Rodrigo Duterte ordered the no-let-up operations against the Abu Sayyaf Group in January this year. The Bureau of Fisheries and Aquatic Resources and the Department of Agriculture officials visited the Benham Rise today. This morning on board a BFAR-C vessel, the officials went to the Benham Plateau to install payao or fish shelters. Fish shelters will help increase the fish production at the Benham Plateau, especially tuna. The installation of payao is part of BFAR's livelihood project in Infanta, Quezon, with a total cost of 6 million pesos, including the boats to be distributed to fishermen. The Benham Rise is 13 million hectares wide where various kinds of fish breed. In 2012, the United Nations recognized the Benham Rise as part of the Philippine continental shelf. Benham Rise is located at east of the northern coastline of Dinapigue, Isabela.
The Global Adult Tobacco Survey reveals that there are 15 million Filipino smokers in the country. Meanwhile, the government has yet to implement the smoking ban in public places. Aiko Miguel will tell us why.
The Department of Health or DOH is still waiting for the signing of the President of the Executive Order or EO that would prohibit smoking in public areas. The country's health secretary says she presented during a cabinet meeting in March the revisions in the said EO. Secretary Pauline Ginobial says she is also confident the President will sign the executive order.
I think that it has finished that process and it's right now on the desk of the President for him to sign very soon.
The Global Adult Tobacco Survey reveals that 1 million Filipinos have already stopped smoking, but there still remain over 10 million Filipino smokers.
This is still a significant number that can contribute to the tobacco-related illnesses. So it will take really some years before we see a reduction in the outcomes, that is the preventable illnesses and deaths due to tobacco use.
The government believes the full implementation of the graphic health warning law in November 2016 has helped in the decline in the number of smokers in the country. Stephen has been smoking for more than 20 years now. If before he can consume a half of cigarette case daily, now he can limit his consumption to 5 cigarette sticks a day.
Malalaking bagay din yan Malaking nabawas sa paninigarilyo. Tunod-tunod na nga, malaki na nabawas.
Alan, meanwhile, has been selling cigarettes for 7 years now. He says he noticed a decline in cigarette consumption of smokers. Ironically, Alan advises smokers to think first of their health.
Maganda rin ang epekto dahil sa mga customer, imbis na marami ang binibili nila, nabawasan na. Minsan na rin ako nahawa ng ganyan. Ang may papayo ko lang sa kanila, kung kaya nila ng bawas-bawasan ng pagsisigarilyo. Hanggang sa kung kaya nilang itigil.
Aiko Miguel, UNTV News and Rescue, Quezon City.
The University of San Carlos will offer scholarships to incoming students to be chosen by 4 of its alumni belonging to the 2016 bar exams top-notchers. Deb Rivera will tell us why.
Having a student top the bar exams is an historic feat for the University of San Carlos, or USC, in Cebu. One of the school's law students, Karen May Calam, got the highest score in the bar exams at 89.05%. She defeated the record of USC alumnus Athena Plaza, who got a score of 87.25%. Ranking second in the 2015 bar exam. Aside from Calam, 3 other Carolinians who made it to the top 10 were Fiona Christie Lau, the 3rd rank, Karen's best friend Anne Margaret Momongan on the 7th spot, and Jefferson Gomez, who ranked 8th. As an expression of gratitude, the University of San Carlos will offer a lifetime scholarship reward to the chosen scholars of the 4 Carolinian bar top-notchers.
The part of our school, we thought that being a university, education is what we can best give. Top-notchers can nominate a person who will then be a scholar. Need not be a relative, really. So, education.
Like here,
one program at a time, yeah.
The scholars can also choose their own course. USC Dean Attorney Joanne Larga says they want to share knowledge to striving students so they could achieve their dreams.
What works for USC is that we have extremely dedicated faculty, supportive USC administration, we have excellent facilities, and more importantly, we have students who demand, who require the best of us. So students who ask us to really train them well, students who do not wish to be treated like small kids, they demand rigid training. That's what they want.
Meanwhile, the campus is set to hold a simple celebration in the coming days for the achievement of their 4 law students. Deborah Vera, UNTV News and Rescue, Philippines.
Those are the reasons behind the news, May 5, 2017. I am Angelo Castro III.
Reasons we delivered to you as they unfold. I'm Darlene Basingan.
Because we need to know, we will always ask why. Thank you for watching Why News.
UNTV, your public service